Hi gardening friends, welcome back to my channel where we are about everything gardening. My name is Dawn and I'm so glad you're joining me in my 8B garden today. If you watched any of the previous videos, you know we've been building a pollinator garden in our backyard. So today I'm going to be adding
a beautiful Pugster Blue Proven Winners butterfly bush, some gorgeous Vandalista, pineapple Lantana, a trophy maker daylily called Manicured Majesty, an adorable happy face cuphea, and then some beautiful purple Pentas.
So we're going to get those in the ground. I'll show you how to care for them. We're going to talk about why the pollinators go crazy for these plants. Be sure to share a little love in the comments. I love to hear from each of you. All right, let's get started. Before we get started today, I just wanted to say a sincere thank you to all of you guys for supporting this channel, for watching, liking, subscribing, commenting. All that you do means so much to me, and you helped me reach a goal, a milestone for me, where I was wanting to get to 5,000 subscribers, and I actually succeeded that. So it is because of you, and I am so grateful to this gardening community and so grateful for you for the support and for watching. I couldn't have done it without you. Here's to growing and learning together. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart. All right, let's get started with today's show. All right, let's talk about the butterfly bush first. I have picked this spot because it's a sunny location. This Pugster Blue is a miniature version. It will only get 2 to 3 feet tall and wide, which I think is pretty amazing. It is beautiful blue flowers in the summer. It needs 6 hours of sunlight. So it's a petite shrub, which will go great because I did plant this lion's tail behind it. So it'll give room for the lion's tail to grow, and then it'll be a lower form towards the front of the bed, which will be a beautiful combination of blues and oranges and whites with the daisies. It is hardy in zones 5 through 9. And actually, I'm sorry, this says 2 feet tall and wide. That's even better. Well-drained soil, always. It does not like wet feet. I do think this is a perfect plant for gardens that are a little bit smaller. Since it's so compact, you can get a lot of bang for your buck and have those beautiful blue blooms all summer long. Normally I would amend this soil, but this whole bed has been amended already. We have mixed in here some landscapers mix, compost, and I'll add some expanded shale when I plant it. It does not like wet feet, so you just want to make sure it's not sitting in your clay soils, which is typically what we deal with where I live. There's a lot of tree roots in here that I'll be dealing with. So it is drought tolerant once it's established. You do want to make sure you water it well while it's trying to get its roots established. You can see how well amended this soil is. Look at it. It's beautiful. But this is after years of amendments. But this is kind of what you want your soil to look like. This is going to be well-drained soil. And under all of this is a clay bed. So I do want to incorporate some of the clay that's pretty deep in there. So I'm going to dig pretty deep, get some of that clay. And the reason you want to do that is just so that your plant doesn't sink into that beautiful soil. You want the clay to amend with all of your amendments. So just keep stirring in your native soil. And then this is the brand of expanded shale that I use. It's Nature's Creation. I get it at my regular garden centers. Like I have Green Acres, and I think the bag is $14.99, and then at Callaway's I think it's $16. But you can see on the bag, open and aerates clay soils fast, increases water retention, but it also helps improve the clay soil conditions. And these little pebbles, so they'll absorb the water so that your roots aren't sitting in clay, and then they'll also release water when moisture is needed. What I do typically is line the very bottom of the bed with this shale. And that will make sure that my roots are not going to be sitting in wet clay and water. And that's how you get a healthy plant. It's all about the root system, and it's all about the dirt. Another amazing thing about this plant is its ability to attract pollinators. So the nectar is very attractive to all of the hummingbirds and the bees and the butterflies. It is another pollinator magnet, and that's one of the main reasons I'm adding it. I'll hit it with some root stimulator, and then we'll go ahead and get this cuphea planted up right next to it. Look at this cute, cute little flower. It's gonna be like ringing the dinner bell for the hummingbirds to come and visit my yard, which is what I've been trying to do. The little tiny tubular flowers are perfect for the beaks, and the bees love them too. So it'll bloom like crazy late spring to fall. We're going for full sun. It's going to go right here in front of the pugster blue and the lion's tail, right here on the border of this sidewalk. All right, let's get this little friend in the ground. In general, cuphea is hardy in zones 9 through 11. In our zone, which is 8B, it's likely to survive the winter if you do a good job of mulching. It'll probably die back to the roots, and you might have a chance of it springing back in the
Spring from the roots.
I think in much colder temperatures, you're going to have to treat it as an annual. I have not figured out yet if I'm going to bring it into the greenhouse or if I'm just going to mulch it heavy. I'm not really sure how I'm going to handle it. So I'm going to see how it performs for me, and then I'll decide. Well-draining soil is a must for this plant. All these plants that I'm planting today do not like wet roots. But you definitely want full sun. A little afternoon shade never hurts a plant. So keep that in mind when I say full sun. Every place with sun is different, Texas especially. Afternoon sun can be extremely harsh. We'll kind of plant that on an angle. And there's little to no maintenance for this. You're just going to water regularly till established, and then it's drought tolerant. Good drainage is key. Make sure you're not putting it in heavy clay. Or if you are, you've got to be providing some amendments and make sure that you're giving it good drainage. And it also works well in containers. And if you want to prune, you can prune for shape. There's no pruning necessary. Let's step back. Here's the tag. It's cuphea. Sun to part shade, height 18 inches, excellent heat tolerant plant. There is a vitex tree, and it is shading my greenhouse from the afternoon sun. So it does a fantastic job of doing that in the summer when it gets so hot. And then below it, I have some daylilies, and I'm about to add these beautiful daylilies that I found at Callaway's. They are called Manicured Majesty. And I love the peachy tones, and I love the burgundy tones. Just the combination is so beautiful to me. It says that the flower size is 5 inches wide. They get 28 inches tall. They're hardy in zones 5 through 8, and they bloom early to mid-season, and they rebloom. So again, attracts pollinators and full sun. As always, I like to garden on a budget. So when I saw how many lilies were in this pot, I got so excited. Look at the amount of lilies we'll be getting out of this. So I'm not going to plant it in one clump. I'm going to I'm going to go ahead and divide each clump and spread them all under the vitex tree here. So I got all of these for $24.99. I had a $5 coupon. We're going to see how many plants we can get out of this. All right. First, I guess I should see if I can even divide them, right? They feel pretty tight. Like all daylilies, if you or plants that are about to flower, if you do divide them, you may affect the bloom a little bit. So keep that in mind. But if you plant for long term, then it shouldn't matter. But yeah, the roots are pretty pretty heavily packed. So I'm gonna go get my handy dandy kitchen knife, and I'll be back. The reason I love my kitchen knife, you cannot beat this serrated edge. I have not found a garden tool yet that works as good as that. That is why I prefer to use it. And I'm just gonna start cutting. And I'll probably regret this year, but you need to be careful of what's planted here. You know, guys, I do this often. I cut and I divide. And when you're doing that with perennials and things like that, you're going to yield more plants, but you're not going to see an immediate result. So if you're gardening on a budget, that is the way to go. And divide your plants often if you can. Again, making them go further. Daylilies like to be divided. Cutting it, there was a river rock in it. Look at that. Isn't that funny? I kept hitting that and thinking, wow, that is a strong root. It's free river rock. Okay, some of them that are too close together that I'm not going to try to divide because I don't think I can do it successfully right now. So I will say I got 1, 2, 3, pull off the dead leaves, 4, 5, 6 total out of the division. I will plant root stimulator like I always do. All right, let's line these babies up. My shovel. I just had it, literally. This area has fantastic drainage already, so I'm not as concerned about the drainage. It's on a slope, and the French drain ends right there, so I think I'm in pretty good shape. And I'm not going to add expanded shale. This is a very tall root ball, so it goes a lot deeper than I thought it would. There's lots of hoses up in here, so I definitely want to be careful. I've got a little catnip coming up right here. Catmint, not nip. It's a nip. With the root ball this deep, I'm really having trouble planting it because there's vitex roots down there. So I'm having to bend the root balls, but I'm trying to keep the roots that I can from breaking off and just making it a little more flexible, but man, it's challenging. Okay, again, I'm planting for long-term results, not short-term. So this may affect blooms. I do see a couple of them have blooms ready to go. So I'll add some root fertilizer, but I won't expect much as far as beautiful blooms this year. If you want them to keep looking crisp and nice, you can always deadhead these. Also, just kind of go in, you can always remove yellowish foliage, remove the spent blooms. This just improves the look of them, but it's not necessary. And they can be semi-evergreen. They may stay green through the winter. It kind of just depends on your area. Since I did cause so much trauma to these roots, I'm going to add the root stimulator right now. This is the kind I use, Nature's Creation. I think that's the same brand of my shale. I don't want to take any chances on waiting. And then I'll probably reapply it in about a week. And maybe if I get lucky, these blooms will come through for me. All right, since I have my root stimulator, let's go water these in. I clearly just want to make sure I don't get anything on the leaves. Sometimes I put the root stimulator in before I cover the hole, and I wish I had done that, but it's too late now. I'll just water slowly and make sure that the water goes deep. So this whole bed is protected from afternoon sun, which in Texas is pretty important. If you can do that, plant plantings that shade from the west, you have best chances of your plants surviving. They'll get that morning sun and that afternoon shade. I think I'm here. I'll put some on the lion's tail and a little bit on the bee balm. I see that red solo cup back there. I have no idea how that got there. I thought it was a bright flower. I got kind of excited. Clearly it's not. I think my husband might have used some red solo cups for some tomatoes. I do want you to see the bear's breeches and all of its gorgeous glory. Let me get a close-up of that flower. This is a new plant. I don't know how it's going to do with our Texas heat. But every day I come out here and I'm just in awe of that flower. I think one of the hardest things for me as a gardener is when it's time to pull out the old annuals and put in the new. Mostly because I feel like the older annuals are just starting to look good. But if I don't get the new ones in, they won't be developed in time enough before our heat kicks in. It is definitely time to pull up the beautiful pansies. These were from Johnny's Seeds, and they are Imperial Shades, I believe is the name of them. I did love the creamy colors that this pansy offered. So I will have to amend this bed. I've got a little bit of soil left from our landscapers mix. I need to add some of that. There's compost in it. I'll probably add a little bit of additional compost and some rose tone and get these pentas planted up. All right, this is just a little bit of additional compost, and I'm going to mix it in there. This bed is pretty much for annuals. Since it's around the pool, I haven't yet figured out a perennial that gives me enough color through the year to put in perennials in these beds. But it has drip and it gets full sun. So when I dig, I just want to be careful of the drip. Maybe I don't even have to dig. Yeah, I have to dig. Oh well. Some of these pansies are huge. Look at these. One plant. Another thing that happens in this bed is the holly leaves are falling from my holly tree right there, and they all blow this way. And so anything I plant gets full of holly leaves right off the bat. So if I can wait a little while, I try to. Do you guys have trouble pulling these up? Just curious if you get excited to plant the next plant, or do you feel sad pulling up beautiful plants like this? Let me know if it's just me. I feel like somebody should create a garden sifter. See how my dirt is full of all that ugly stuff I want to get rid of, but to do that, I have to throw the dirt out. If I had a nice big sifter, Wouldn't have to get rid of the good dirt. Maybe I'll create my own. I always amend my soil before adding annuals. They have such a short life that they really, really, really need good soil and fertilizer to start performing right away for you. So you don't want to use old soil or you'll get poor results. You want the most blooming and goodness. Okay, so I had to put myself on pause because this dirt has been sitting in the wheelbarrow for quite a while. I want to say 2 weeks now. And when I started spreading it, there must have been a grasshopper that had babies because 20 million grasshoppers started going crazy, y'all. So I'm sorry if you are a grasshopper fan. I am not a fan. I don't want them in my garden. So I smushed them and they're out there for the birds to eat. So I'm sorry, again, if that's not something that you can handle. But grasshoppers are not my thing, especially when they get huge. It's disgusting. All right. So back to what I was saying about amending the soil. For best results, I would add some compost at the least, some type of slow release fertilizer, which is what I use, rose tone. Some people use flower tone. Some people use Osmocote. So whatever is your preferred slow release fertilizer. Yeah, I got them all. Grasshoppers can do serious damage to a garden. Not the kind of damage I want. And those baby ones are, there's another one. Also, once you have grasshoppers, it's impossible to get rid of them. So that is not something I'm going to let start in my garden. I also just add a little rose tone to each hole. These pentas are so root bound. All right, pentas are butterfly candy. Their little star-shaped flowers make nectar, and the butterflies love the pentas. They're an easy, no-fuss annual. They like full sun, good drainage. They're not picky about water. I think once a week is probably good. They do not like a lot of water. They really benefit from drying out in between waterings. Full sun and fertilize weekly if you can, an organic fertilizer, just because of the pollinators feeding on the flowers. You could use a bloom booster, an organic liquid bloom booster throughout the growing season. As soon as you plant these guys, you'll probably start getting visitors, and they grow in a beautiful little mound. Super neat looking. Perfect for borders and beds like this. I still have a few petunia roots in here. I'll just pull them out as they try to start to grow, I guess. And I'm not going to put a root stimulator on these just because I did put rose tone. It has a biotone root stimulator in it. already. I still feel like I see grasshoppers hopping all over the place. I'm traumatized. There they are. Okay, friends, I'm going to let y'all go for now. I'm going to be on the hunt for these little baby grasshoppers. I'll be back and we'll get that lantana planted. I promise. Okay, well, I want to put my lantana in this bed right here in front of the drift roses. And this lantana, the name of it is Lantana bandolista pineapple. And I almost bought it just for the name because I like the name as much as I love the plant. But I do struggle a little bit with keeping the same tones in front of these red drift roses. I tend to just stick to creamies and whites. So I want to change it up a little bit. This is such a vibrant yellow. I hope it's not going to take away from everything else going on in the garden, although I feel like it might. This will be the first year I'm trying a yellow color, but I will keep my fingers crossed that it's not too overwhelming. But lantana is another one of those pollinator magnets that is covered in butterflies throughout the summer. So it is a must-have for somewhere in your full sun garden. Not everywhere, but definitely when you have space because it will spread pretty big. But I wanted to show you guys what I got at Green Acres this past week. Can you see it there? All right, let's go take a closer look. How gorgeous. I couldn't pass it up. I have tons of dichondrophals in my room and I'm a sucker for it, but I bought the basket already in full grown madness. Look at that. So it is Proven Winners Silver Falls hanging basket that I got at Green Acres, and it was, where's the price? Somewhere in here. $16.95. Isn't that beautiful? So I'm just going to pull one of my drips and put it up in here and let it water from up there. They don't need a lot of water and it'll get morning sun. So it's a perfect area. I'm going to hang it here for now. And if I find another place that I think I'd prefer to have it, I'll move it. But I kind of like it right there next to the oak leaf. What a gorgeous combination, right? Just wow. Can y'all hear the bees a buzzing? They're everywhere. Let me see. Normally I see evidence of mole activity, but I haven't seen it. That's good news. I did catch one earlier in the spring in the trap. So maybe that's why these pansies are looking so good. Because normally they do have mole activity right through the roots. For lantana, it's real important that you provide good drainage. This bed is perfect for lantana because it is a raised bed. So the drainage is fantastic. Some of the other beds aren't as suitable in my garden. But what I'm going to do, I am adding, because it has good drainage, I'm not concerned about adding expanded shale, and I am going to add compost as a amendment to this area because this soil has not had any amendments added, and I am going to add some rose tone to each individual lantana that I plant. So this is just black cow manure that I'm adding. And I think if your drainage is poor, I would be really careful adding compost. It does tend to hold moisture. And I feel comfortable doing it in this bed because of the drainage situation. But if you have clay beds, I would definitely add expanded shale or pea gravel or something to help that drainage. Amend it really well with the clay and some landscapers mix to provide a good drainage situation for these roots. All right, so look at this beautiful. Isn't that so pretty? So we have 5, and I think I'm just going to kind of scatter them in. And then over here in this corner, I have Leatris. And so I don't necessarily want a lantana growing too close to that. And I think that is the layout. I might spread these out a little bit more, push them all to the right. But every now and then the sun goes behind the clouds, but wow, it is hot, hot. I'm dying out here. I don't know what it is, but it feels pretty bad. I think it's just very humid from all the rain we get. Or got, not get. This bed's also on drip. Most of my yard is on drip if I can help it. That's how I prefer it. I don't just want a straight line. Somehow I need to figure out how to stagger these. All right, I think that'll work. All right, lantana is usually treated as an annual here. I believe it can be a perennial in zones 10 and 11, but in colder climates, it's definitely an annual. I do lose mine every year. I have overwintered some in the greenhouse successfully, but by the time spring comes, they look so bad that I don't want to pull them out and put them in my garden. So I'm not even sure if it's worth it to overwinter them anymore. But it is a beautiful, beautiful shrub through the hot summer months, and it can tolerate so much drought. But just because it tolerates drought doesn't mean it doesn't like its fair share of water. But it will be a workhorse in your garden and will flower and attract pollinators like you would not believe. So if you have a full sun bed somewhere, you should make some room for some lantana. You can plant it when the danger of frost has passed. And yep, there is an evidence of a mole. I was wondering when I was going to see one. Huh. It was only a matter of time. So anyways, rich, well-draining soil. They do like fertilizer, but because of all the pollinators, you might want to just make sure you're using organic fertilizer. I put rose tone in as a slow release and a root stimulating starter, and then I use a bloom booster throughout this season. But you do want to keep the soil watered, and once it's established, it is drought tolerant. But how do we say tolerant? It is drought tolerant, but as a baby, when you first plant them, you want to make sure that you're giving them a good watering, helping those roots to go deep. Long, deep waterings is the way to go. The deeper those roots are, the healthier the plant will be. These roots look amazing. Once it's established, you want to wait until the soil kind of drains and dries out the top 2 inches before you add more water to the plant. But in containers, if you're growing it in a hanging basket or something like that, you want to make sure that if you're growing it as a perennial, you can prune it back to about 1/3 in the spring. But if you're growing as an annual, you want to watch and see if it's the type of lantana that develops seed pods. And if you deadhead those seed pods, you'll keep the flowering process going a little bit longer. The plant will not have to work on developing seeds, and it can concentrate on the flowering. So all you do to deadhead is just cut off the spent flowers. And again, if it doesn't produce seed heads, you don't need to worry about it. The seed heads would look like little round balls on the lantana plant. If you want more of a bushy plant, you can kind of just prune it into the shape you want. If you want more of a neat little round shape, which is kind of what I want in this bed for sure. But otherwise, lantana does not require pruning. It's pretty easy maintenance. Once you get it established, you can cut back on the water and watch this baby collect the pollinators. It looks like I have a broken drip I'll need to fix. Darn. Oh, I hate that. All right, there they are. There's the beautiful Pentas. Let me get a close-up of the flower for you. All right, let's get these watered in. All right, guys, now we have everything planted. Let's just take a walk around. I'll show you a few updates on some of the things that are coming into bloom, and also just talk about why pollinators are so important. And it's not just about the beauty of our plants, but it is. We all want a pretty garden, but if you can combine a pretty garden and support biodiversity at the same time with pollinators, it's an added bonus. Slowly, the midnight masquerade is coming into bloom. When you plant the nectar-rich flowers like we did today, you're creating a nice little safe haven for our pollinators, giving them food and shelter. All sorts of amazing things will happen in your garden. And it's pretty awesome to step outside every morning and see your garden buzzing with butterflies and bees and you name it. I don't think anything's happened new since my garden tour. I can go show you what's in the greenhouse. Oh yeah, this is blooming. This is that orchid, desert orchid bloom. It's in a tree form. Pretty cool looking. I've got a whole lot of blue wave petunias to plant. Do you see that? I need to go ahead and get those out before it gets too hot. I have a project that I'd like to get done. I have a stencil for the floor in here. I don't know where it went. It was in here. Oh, here it is. So this is an upcoming project that I hope to get to. And I would like to stencil every other block and make the floor cute. And I'm not that worried about the dirt. In fact, I think the dirt will add charm to it. It'll look a little more antique. But that is something that I need to get to soon. I don't know if I'll be able to get to it with the heat. I may have to wait until the fall, but hopefully not. And I also released a bunch of lacewing eggs. So I'll be putting a video out about that very soon. Do you see the old lantanas that I overwintered? How much they struggled? And I just don't want to put that in my garden just yet. So I'm waiting for them to actually put on a little bit more growth before I get them out there. But I think I'll work on getting these out today. And then these are Dragon Beth celotias from seed. And I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those I need to get in. And the rest are the blue vincas. Got a lot of those to get in as well. So, and down here, my annuals are the same as what I've been talking about previously. I still have not gotten them planted. I need to get on it. So I've been so busy working on this pollinator garden. But anyways, as always, I'm so grateful you joined me today. And I hope that you find a way of getting pollinators in your garden and that this got you inspired to get some butterflies and bees and hummingbirds buzzing their way towards your garden. So, all right, well, thank you guys for joining me, and I hope you have a fantastic day. I will see you in the next one. Bye.